Hi, this is Randy Wykoff, the Dean of the College of Public Health at East Tennessee State University, and I'm pleased to provide the Public Health Weekly Update with data accurate through November 17th, 2022. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about nuclear war, and then last week I talked about dirty bombs. And I got an email from a colleague and someone who watches these videos who said, you're not addressing one of the more important issues, which is chemical weapons. They've been used much more than either nuclear weapons or dirty bombs. So the question is, should we be concerned about chemical weapons? And just quick background, a chemical weapon is any weapon, any chemical designed to poison people, along with its precursors, anything that can be used to make it, as well as any device used to distribute it. And remember, a chemical weapon doesn't have to be a bomb. It doesn't have to explode. You can distribute a chemical passively in an enclosed space or with a fan or anything else. And these are not new issues, right? Chemical weapons have been around a long time. My grandfather was hit with mustard gas and chlorine gas in World War I, was blinded temporarily and spent many weeks in a hospital. So these things have been around a long time. It's helpful to think of chemical weapons as falling into three categories: harassing agents, incapacitating agents, and lethal agents. These are not clear distinctions, but they're helpful. So harassing agents are things that we might think of in terms of tear gas, pepper spray, things that are bothersome but not incapacitating or lethal. So riot control agents, for example. Incapacitating agents are things that cause delirium, hallucinations, things that mess with your mind. And then lethal agents, by definition, are things that kill you, particularly mustard gas, as it was in World War I, blood agents like cyanide and arsenic base that interrupt the transport of oxygen in your body. Zyklon B famously was used in World War II in the gas chambers. Choking agents suffocate by building up fluid in the lungs, so people just simply can't breathe. Chlorine gas and phosgene gas. And it's estimated that about a little over 3/4 of all the deaths from gas in World War I were due to these kind of agents. And then nerve agents, of course, are well known. We talk about them a fair amount. There's many different types, but generally they disrupt nerve communication within the body, meaning that you can't breathe. You don't have the muscle capacity, the nerve capacity to breathe, or your heart stops working. And there are various different ways they're classified: G series, V series, and so on. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but the G series, sarin, soman, and so on, can be spread by contact with your skin or by inhalation. They're denser than air, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. And really, their severity depends on how much you're exposed to. But exposure to high concentrations of vapor immediately causes loss of consciousness, followed shortly by convulsions, and so on. And I do want to make a point here: vapor, not all chemical weapons have to be gas. They can also be a liquid. VX is 10 times more potent than sarin. As little as a single drop on your skin can be fatal. And generally, it's absorbed more by skin than by inhalation. But if you do inhale it, you can die within seconds. Larger exposure can cause death just from skin exposure. Right. And if you want to pause the video at this point, you can sort of see the different characteristics of these different types of agents. I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail at this point. But one of the important things to point out is that unlike dirty bombs we talked about last week, chemical weapons have been used in modern times. A report from the Congressional Research Service reports that all of these times that it had been used, the Syrian government used it, nerve agents many times. VX was used to assassinate the half-brother, the Korean leader. Russian agents have used a particular class of agents, attempted assassinations. And there have been some historical uses of chemical weapons that still stay in our mind. particularly World War I, but also the On Shinrikyo attack in the Tokyo subway, and then in the 1980s, the use of chemical weapons in the Iran-Iraq war. In the closing days of the war, perhaps the most notorious was the Halabja chemical attack. It consisted probably of mustard gas and a nerve agent. Between 3,000 and 5,000 people were killed immediately, many thousands more wounded, and they're only now beginning to understand the long-term impacts. There may well be impacts on birth outcome, heart and lung conditions, and certainly psychological well-being. I don't generally put up pictures that are disturbing, but I think this particular event was so disturbing that we have to pay attention to it. So despite the Chemical Weapons Convention signed by almost 200 countries, which prohibits the development and use, some chemical weapons and some production facilities are declared and many more are undeclared. In other words, there are chemical weapons out there. So should we be concerned about them? Yes, we should be. They can be made with chemicals that are not unusual, though typically, historically, the perpetrators of chemical weapons attacks have been states and not individual or terrorist agents, but that could happen. Now, if you happen to be in a situation where you are exposed to a chemical attack, the CDC says three things. First, get away. If you are inside, go outside. Inside, when the chemical is released in a building, go outside. If you're outside, try to go up as high as you can, because remember, many of these agents are heavier than air. They will settle down. In the Halabja attack, people who went into the basement of homes actually may have been exposed at a greater extent. If you are inside a building and the exposure is outside, you want to stay inside, and the CDC provides some guidance on what you need to do to protect yourself to keep from getting exposed. Second is get it off. Obviously, they tell you do not rub your skin, but blot it off. Take off all your clothing if you can safely. If you can, of course, take a shower. Do not drink fluids. Dry yourself and dress in clean clothes. I don't think that's meant to be a sartorial comment, but to keep you from being, minimize the amount of skin that you have to be exposed. If you can't take a shower, they talk about taking out your contact lenses, blotting, flushing your eyes, and trying to get as much off of you as you can. And then, of course, get help. If you are exposed to chemical agents, you need to seek medical care, even if you don't appear to be ill in the first part of the. So, as with so many of the things we've talked about, preparation is really important. I don't have time to go through everything now, but all of us should have some sort of emergency kit that has the things that we need to use should our normal operations, our normal lifestyle be disrupted significantly. And the CDC lists a pretty good list of things here. So should we be concerned about chemical weapons? Yes, they are out there. They are used periodically. They can be very lethal. They can be particularly lethal for large populations or in enclosed areas. And while they have not historically been widely used by terrorists, they have been used by state agents. And in addition to causing significant health issues, they can cause substantial psychological upset. So we should be concerned. Obviously, a great deal more information about public health issues on the website. Please share this video or any of the previous ones. You may not know that if you go to our College of Public Health website, you can see all the previous weekly updates, all the ones we did on COVID and all the ones we've done since then. If this is being shared with you and you want to be on the mailing list, please let Jan Stork know. I'd like to thank Dr. Olson for providing background information and technical advice on chemical weapons. As always, I'd like to thank Dara Young for editing, producing, adding captions, and posting this video. And as always, I want to thank you. I look forward to your questions and comments. I answered several of them by direct email response this week. And then, of course, this presentation itself is a result of a comment from a viewer. So thank you very much. And until next week, please be well.